This video is an outreach of Unity Christian Church, 3500 West Hill Road, Flint, Michigan. I am Brenda Richard, empowered by the Holy Spirit. The mission of Unity Christian Church is to lead people to Jesus Christ and encourage one another on our faith journey. Bible readings are from the New Revised Standard Version, and commentary is from the Abingdon Women's Preaching Annual and Feasting on the Word. Editing and music from the public domain by Georgette. Our subject today is halfway up a stony mountain, or ordinary Christian. Our scripture today is from Exodus chapter 3, verses 1 through 15. And it reads, Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian. He led his flock beyond the wilderness and came to Mount Horeb, the mountains of God. There, the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of a bush. He looked, and the bush was blazing, yet it was not consumed. Then Moses said, I must turn aside and look at this great sight and see why the bush is not burned up. When the Lord saw that he had turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. Then he said, Come no closer. Remove the sandals from your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. He said further, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. Then the Lord said, I have observed the misery of my people who are in Egypt. I have heard their cry on account of their taskmaster. Indeed, I know their suffering, and I have come down to deliver them from the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land to a good and spacious land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the country of the Canaanites and the Hittites, Amorites, the Perizzites, Hivites, and the Jebusites. The cry of the Israelites has now come to me, and I have also seen how the Egyptians oppress them. Now go, I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? He said, I will be with you, and this shall be the sign for you that it is I who sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. But Moses said to God, If I come to the Israelites and say to them, The God of your ancestors has sent me to you, and they ask me, What is his name? What shall I say to them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. He said further, Thus you shall say to the Israelites, I am has sent me to you. God also said to Moses, Thus you shall say to the Israelites, The Lord, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my title for all generations. Thanks be unto God for the reading and the hearing of God's word. Let us pray. Gracious God, you call us to serve you on the mountain. Yet we often lose our way. Christ calls us to deny ourselves, and yet we stumble in the getting. Like Peter, we ask if there is another, less costly way. Save us from weak resignation. Renew in us body, mind, and spirit so that we might live for your sake. We pray this in the name of Jesus, who calls us to follow him. Hear these words from the Reverend Dr. Kristen Emery Saldine, preacher, author, educator. Dr. Saldine said, "Back in my early years, I had a best friend. I first met her in the third grade. I had changed schools and I didn't know a soul. The teacher, bless her heart, paired me up with another independent, a girl named Shelley. We became best souls and we stayed that way through junior high. So Kristen and Shelley were opposite in many ways. Shelley was pragmatic. Kristen was romantic. Shelley liked facts. Kristen was never sure there were any facts. They even lived at opposite ends of the same street. Together, they were pioneers, scientists, adventurers, philosophers, and comedians. Shelley lived in a house on a big lot, and when her brothers weren't throwing dirt clots at them, they had it most to themselves. They would sleep out back on summer nights. Kristen didn't know why they slept out there, but they would always be bitten by mosquitoes and wake up with Shelley's eyes swollen shut. Shelley's mom said it was from spider bites, which made Kristen queasy, but didn't seem to bother Shelley in the least. One summer night, a long time ago, they rolled out the heavy flannel sleeping bags, leaned back, and gazed up through the night at the summer stars. Reaching for those stars, Kristen was suddenly overcome with a sense of awe and cosmic connectedness. In a vulnerable moment, Kristen confided in Shelley, something that she could only tell her best friend, something so secret that she couldn't tell anyone else, not even her mother. Shelley, she said, gazing up at the stars, Shelley, I think I am meant for something special, something really, really special. I think I'm destined for fame. She waited for Shelley's reply. Shelley snorted in laughter. Duh, she said. Everybody thinks they're special. The fact that you think you're special only proves that you're just like everybody else. Christian shared that Shelley was a pessimist and a skeptic. As you can imagine, Kristen was crushed. She was humiliated. She was changed. Although she didn't know it at the time, she had just come face to face with the Via Negativa, an ancient Christian spiritual tradition. The Via Negativa, or the negative way, teaches that we must empty ourselves of our pretensions before we can ever hope to be filled with God's grace in our lives. Having grown up in Sunday school, Christian had been told countless times in countless ways that God loved her. And like all God's people, she was special. But she didn't remember being told that she was ordinary. Surely Moses was ordinary, or maybe not. He was a liberator, a lawgiver, counted in the company of the great biblical heroes of faith like Elijah and Daniel and David. Moses towered over the Old Testament. But in this story, in the early chapters of Exodus, Moses is ordinary. Nothing more than a son-in-law shepherd, a tiny speck alone in the vast emptiness of the Western wilderness. Moses' humanness stands in striking contrast to the Almighty One who meets him there. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The supernatural details of the encounter emphasize the difference between the human and the divine. An angel appears in the flame of fire that crackles with heat but does not consume. God speaks and Moses listens, forced to hide his face lest he perish from the awe and the terror. You will bring the people out of Egypt, God said. But who am I to stand before Pharaoh? Moses replies. Who am I to bring the people out of? You can almost hear Moses saying, I'm ordinary. I'm not that gifted. God does not comment on Moses's capabilities. Being talented and gifted is not the issue. God's presence is. I will be with you and all through all of this, God tells Moses, and you will serve me up on this mountain. Indeed, for the rest of his life, Moses will serve God upon this mount. He is on an epic journey, and mountains mark the significant crossings. Moses is commissioned on Mount Horeb. He receives the Ten Commandments on Mount Sinai. And before he dies, Moses briefly glimpses the promised land from Mount Nebo. Early Christian monastics thought that there was a connection between Moses and mountains. They even modeled their spiritual discipline after Moses' experience, especially on Mount Sinai, known as desert spirituality. This ancient tradition followed what is known as the Via Negativa. It is called the negative way because it teaches that God is terrifyingly, sublimely other. Before we can even know God's presence, we must strip ourselves of any idea that we can confine God to our own language or experience. Desert spirituality teaches that spiritual life in Christ moves in three stages. First, like Moses, we enter the wilderness where we are emptied of all pretensions. Next, we climb the mountain. Here we find illumination. And finally, we experience the cloud of the glory of God. It is this second step that intrigued Kristen and many other scholars. The ascent of the mountain, the place of illumination. This is where we Christians spend most of our spiritual lives. Yes, many of us know the wilderness. You know, that place where we find ourselves, whether by choice or by circumstances. We find it in times of loss, and sorrow, and confusion. This is a terrifying, parched place that's silent, where the landscape is frail and vulnerable and stripped of all pretension. I'm special, Christian said. The stars proclaim it. No, you're not, her friend says. You're no more special than all the other billions of carbon atoms that make up the universe. Suddenly, Christian was ordinary, basic, elemental, made with the same stuff as the world around her. Then she was in existential confusion, asking all those classic questions that all of us have asked. Why am I here? Who am I? What does it all mean? And as Christian wandered in the wilderness, she said she plucked the petals off a desert flower. I'm special. I'm special not. God loves me. God loves me not. The via negativa reminds Christian and us that flower plucking in the desert is a waste of our lives. The via negativa reminds us that there is no accomplishment, no bargain, no claim we can make on God. We are just human beings mediocre Christian at the best. A mediocre Christian. Mediocre. From the French, meaning halfway up a stony mountain. You can look it up in the dictionary when you get home. Mediocre. Not down in the pits of despair, not up in the cloud of spiritual ecstasy, but halfway up the mountain. This is the place of discipleship. This is where life is, in the classroom, in the kitchen, in the hospital room, in the living room of ordinary landscapes. Mediocre Christians are Christians in real places and in real life. We are each a mediocre Christian, and we serve on the mountain of God. Kristen said she grew up, like many of us, during a dramatic explosion of California Christian popular ministry. You remember when youth groups were bursting at the seams? She says that her high school youth group had over 100 kids. It was big. Everything was big. Her meetings were big. Her mission trips were big. There were conversions, relapses, and even more dramatic reconversion. Testimonies generated their own energy with ever increasing dramatic details. On retreats, they would relish their mountaintop experience, hating the drive home to their boring old church and their boring families. Who were those mediocre Christians anyway? God would surely spit them out. Those youth groups brought so much light to so many. But Christian can't help but thinking that they have a downside too. They make us believe that faith wasn't really faith unless it was better and bigger than the last faith you had. The mountaintops had to keep getting bigger, bigger. There's a truth, though, about climbing mountains for a living. Once you climb it, you have to get back down. You see, we're not meant to live up among the clouds. There just isn't enough oxygen. Sure, we can experience the exhilaration of a climb. We can be slain and by grace, but we can't stay that way for long. Moses lasted 40 days on Mount Sinai. Most of us are fortunate if we taste the cloud of transcendence maybe once or twice in a lifetime. When you do ascend the mountain of God and you are enveloped in the cloud of witnesses, that is a great gift. But it's not the end of the story. Mountaintop experiences are only one step in the journey. They never have been our destination. Moses went up to Mount Horeb to meet with God and had to come back down and face Pharaoh. He climbed Mount Sinai, got the Ten Commandments, and had to go back down and face the golden. If this is the landscape of faith, then this is where we need to be. We can gladly be mediocre Christians if it means living halfway up the mountain of God. It was 50 years ago when Christian had her first encounter with Via Negativa. She went to visit her long ago best friend. And Shelley lives where else? In the mountains. Shelley's a potter, a sculptor, a gardener, and a skeptic as always. Once again, they slept outside. But because they're older, they slept on the porch on plastic lawn chairs. Once again, Shelley warned Christian about the spiders, especially a certain black widow that lived nearby. Once again, this made Christian queasy, but didn't bother Shelley in the least. Christian remembered the night was dark and the stars were bright and the thin mountain air surrounded them. She laughed and she said sheepishly, Shelley, remember when a long time ago I told you I thought I would be someone special, that I was a person of destiny? Remember how you laughed and snorted and told me that I was stupid? Well, you were right. I'm not the person I thought I would become. Yeah, I remember, she said. I just said that because I knew that it would bug you. Suddenly, Kristen was overcome by grace. She, sleeping in a plastic lawn chair on a porch, in mortal fear of spiders. And that night, halfway up the mountain, Christian saw stars. My brothers and sisters, believe the good news of God's abounding love in Jesus Christ. By confessing faith in Christ and being baptized into his church, we are given new life, life in the Spirit. We invite you to accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior. Commit yourself to his ways through the grace of God and the power of the Holy Spirit. Let us pray. Almighty and everlasting God, help us and defend us, we pray. Set free those who are oppressed. Let your love and mercy reach out, especially to the least of us. Raise up those of us who have fallen. Reveal your presence to those of us who are lonely. Feed those of us who are hungry. Help those of us who are weak to stand. Heal those of us who are sick. Bring back to the safety of your fold those of us who have gone astray. We thank you, O God, for seasonable weather, for good harvest, for peaceful and plentiful times. We praise you for seed and soil, for the sun and the rain. We rejoice in your faithfulness and pray that when Christ returns, he will find faith among us, though we are ordinary, mediocre Christians. We pray, Lord, that you will help the children find faith. We pray for our Christian community, for those near and those who are far, for those whose lives are well ordered and fruitful, and for those who have known failure, embarrassment, and all the things that accompany those experiences. We all need your power and especially your love. So, Lord, we ask that you guide your church and each of us. Watch over and protect us all. Nourish every one of us with your loving care and save your people for the sake of your dear Son, Jesus, our Lord and Savior. Amen. Now, my brothers and sisters, go forth into the world to serve God with gladness. Be of good courage. Hold fast to that which is good. Render to no one evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the afflicted. Honor all people. Love and serve God and rejoice in the power of the Holy Spirit. Now may the grace of Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the communion of the Holy Spirit be with each of us. Amen.